Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the North East Non-League Show, episode 66, with our Teesside Takeover, sponsored by DJ Private Hire, Gateway Accounting Services Limited, Elite Goalkeeper Academy, and Motivate. And tonight, join us, we have Thornaby fan Steve and Yarm and Eagle Cliff Farm James. Thank you very much, lads, for coming on the show tonight.
No worries, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Joe.
Excellent. It was just nice, like you say, to get some other more new teams onto the channel as well. Like you say, we're trying to cover as many teams from the Northern League and upwards as well. So it's nice to get a new couple of fans on the channel as well. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about the both clubs, kind of the progression so far over the season, aims for the rest of the season once we get this rev out the way as well. And it's quite strange to get you both on, and literally 3 points between you in the league and both sides in the top 10. It's been great so far, to be honest. And start with yourself, Steve. Obviously relegated last season. I mean, what was your main aims as a fan wanting from the club with life in Division 2?
Well, I think it's fair to say that as a fan, if you're relegated, your first kind of thing is you always want to get straight back up. You know, we've had a couple of seasons in the first division, and you know the competition's tougher, the crowds are bigger. It's just more of a match day event almost. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful at all to the second division, but we did. And we wanted to bounce straight back. But at the same time, personally, I'm a realist. I know that the second division is not an easy league whatsoever to get out of. As has been proven, over a couple of times with teams who've come down and then not gone back up and what have you. I mean, for us, at the beginning of last season, we were relegated with a squad that had, at the start of the season, that squad had finished third in the first division, only, the season before. So we were going into last season kind of really expecting, why not? Why couldn't we have another good run and what have you? Unfortunately, of course, what happened, and it was absolutely tragic really, is that we lost Neil Campbell, who was our assistant manager at the time. Horrific accidental passing of Neil, and I think it kicked a lot of people in the stomach. The team, the players, the club, the fans, the management. And we started that last season, with that same squad, and obviously Paul Edwards stayed on as manager. And I just think that it was something that was just so difficult for everyone to kind of come back from. And I think it just, whatever that, you know what I mean? It was kind of like, it really hurt. And I think that it just wasn't the same. Whatever that chemistry was, whatever that, that magic that we had with that squad, it just wasn't there. Obviously, Eddie ended up leaving partway through that season last year. And as often happens when managers leave, the squad goes with them. Just seems to be the nature of the Northern League, So the club brought Jamie Tunstall in, along with Dino Brown, who from sort of Christmas, just after Christmas of last season, really rebuilt the squad from very much the bare bones. They got us our first win in the January of that season, our first home win, which probably gives you a good idea of the quality of form that we were in if we had to wait until January for our first home win. And they did a great job. Not one of us would fault them. We did end up being relegated, of course, but none of us would fault them for the effort. And likewise with the lads who came and signed in for the squad and what have you. So, yeah, I mean, it was a tough one to take getting relegated, as it always is. But, we would want to be bouncing straight back. We didn't get that straight away, unfortunately. The start of our season, as I'm sure you'll talk about later on, wasn't as good as we would have hoped. But yeah, so yeah, like I say, I think it was the same as anyone. We wanted to bounce straight back up. Maybe naive or not, we all probably expected to, as you would. But this is football, isn't it? It doesn't always work like that.
No, definitely not. And James, completely different, obviously, for yourself coming into the Northern League for the first time. And I mean, it's nice to see a few eyebrows raised. Who's these teams coming up from these other leagues? And I mean, what was your expectations for the club and for yourself as a fan of the club coming into the Northern League?
I think for me, I always thought it was going to be tough. You look at that league and there's a lot of established teams in there. A lot of big, big names effectively. Like Sir Thornaby, like Sir Billingham Symphonia. Bedlington Terriers, all like names that people know, have heard of, and you're like, oh, just little old Yarm and Eaglescliff coming through. It was going to be a tough challenge. There's a lot of games. You go from playing in the North Riding Premier League, you're playing like 26 games a season, to into the Northern League, you're playing 42 games. It's a lot more. You need a lot more strength and depth. It's a lot of games come thick and fast. So it's kind of like how we're going to cope with that. I'm naturally a bit of a pessimist when it comes to sport. A lot of the time, I was my sole target really for the club this season was survival. Just to establish ourselves, get ourselves into. If we finished, third bottom and fourth bottom and stayed up, then that'd be brilliant. That would be an achievement. And anything else would be an absolute bonus. And we've had a lot more since, over and above, what I expected. I kind of knew we had a strong team. The core of the team's been with us for, the past couple of seasons. And we did really well in the North Riding Premier League. We finished twice, 2 seasons in a row. And, a couple of seasons back where we went unbeaten. But we still finished second, drew a few too many games. Borough Rangers won. They obviously got promoted, and then they had a good season last year, going up in the league and first division. Reading Newmarket beat us to the league last season, the North Riding Premier League. But we put in a really good shift. Got some really good players. We added some quality players as well, and we didn't go wild and spend big money, as it were. They were all like players from the North Riding Premier League, from some of the other teams coming through. Some other players like Steve Jacko came in. He's got Northern League experience. Kind of bolstered the team, but we kept that core, which is really good to see, because I've seen them playing for the past couple of seasons and see that kind of progress going through. So I was kind of pessimistic, but I remember listening to our manager Glenn Kyle, who was interviewed on BBC Tees a week before the season started, and they were asking him, "Well, where do you think we're going to end up?" And he was like, "Oh, we're going to be top 10. We're going to be the aims to be top 10 and pushing for the playoffs." And I thought, fair play. That optimism, and I think that the players and the management, the committee had that confidence and belief. Maybe I was being a bit too pessimistic, but I think generally, everybody around the club just really excited to get a crack at Northern League football. I mean, the committee, the players, the supporters, everybody in the club. We're a young club. We're only established in 2017. Gone from playing on the field at Preston Park back then, to playing in the Northern League in the space of 6 or 7 years, which is a hell of an achievement, really. And it's just fantastic to get the players a chance to have a crack at Northern League football, just to prove they're good enough. And I think that they've more than done that this season, which we'll obviously talk through a bit more this evening.
No, very, very good. And back to yourself, Steve, like you say, you touched on them first few games. I know that the losses started straight away, but I mean, looking at the first 6 games overall, 2 wins, 3 losses and the draw, how did you feel after them open half a dozen games of the season?
Well, again, I mean, we had quite not an eventful summer so much, but obviously Jamie Tunstall had decided that he wasn't going to remain with the club. After the summer from last season, he'd had an option to go elsewhere, and he wanted to explore that, and that's can't fault them on that. The decision from the club was obviously made for Dino. Dino was keen to stay and wanted to try and take on that sort of number one management kind of role rather than as assistant. And he's gone on, he's built his squad. I think that it was certainly a very quick welcome back to Division 2, put it that way, because it was, we had a first game of the season was away over at Symphonia down in Stokesley. The game itself wasn't that uncompetitive. I felt that, we didn't do too bad. We did lose, but I think some of that was quite apparent, certainly in the supporters, so I would assume it was apparent from a management point of view, was that we just didn't seem to have anyone who would put the ball in the goal.
Yeah.
We had all the build-up. We had, all our goals early on seemed to come from set pieces. We didn't really seem to score from like an open play situation until, I forget off the top of my head, but it was a couple of games, where we had this kind of like really bizarre thing where we would get close and then it just wasn't happening. We ended up, we played away at Billingham Town, who had been struggling. We lost 1-0, which obviously is a tough one for us. I think that followed, we had 2 games, both away at Easington Colliery. We played them in the Vars first and then in the league, or it was the other way around. I forget off the top of my head. And both games were 3-1 defeats where, we just didn't look in it. We looked well off the pace. When you start to get that, it's like any club. People start to get a bit, the tensions and questioning, or is the management decision right? Why aren't we doing this? Why isn't this happening? But I think that, real benefit of Thornaby Football Club, I mean, and I'm sure it's the same at most Northern League clubs, but, I can only vouch for myself in our club, is that, we're very supportive of our own. We'll look out for our management. We're not going to be on their case, as soon as the team loses a game, because it doesn't get you anywhere. The Northeast is a footballing community. As much as it's quite big, it's also very small. And, you can't go around alienating people, because you're only ever going to have a certain pool of people who are going to want to come into the club. Everyone knows each other. If you develop a reputation as being like a club with a toxic atmosphere, it's going to ultimately, doom you, really. I think that you're going to struggle in moving forwards. So I believe there was discussions with the club and discussions with the management, and they put their heads together, and Dino's certainly given the chance following those kind of initial games, and the form certainly picked up. The form did improve. I think the game straight after we those 2 defeats at Easington, we went and we won. It was a bit hit and miss, win, defeat. And then we've just hit like an incredible kind of seam of form lately. We've gone since, I'm going to stick my neck out, I think sometime in November since the last time we actually lost.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that we haven't really played a lot of games in that time and what have you. But, we're 9 games undefeated now. The team is gelled very well. They look better, we're scoring, we're looking good now. And I think that whatever those kind of early kind of teething problems were with the team and the squad, they've certainly been ironed out now,
That's very good stuff going at the moment. And James, obviously your first 6 games of the season, played, I think it was the 6 games, won 2, lost 4. But I think it was all important just to get that first win on board and then build from there, wasn't it, from as you mentioned there before?
Massively. I mean, it was a very steep learning curve at first. I think I remember rocking up on a sunny Saturday at the end of July, our first home game against Prudhoe at Bedford Terrace. Got beat 3-0, and we just weren't at the races. It just we were like rabbits in the headlights, effectively. It's like, well, what's going on here? Kind of think, do we belong here? It was like a kind of shock to the system. You go from, as I mentioned before, like the previous seasons, we've been there or thereabouts, and you went in with quite a bit of confidence. You go into that game not knowing probably what to expect, and we just didn't show up that day. It was almost like you kind of like when the new kids start at secondary school and they're kind of like finding their way around sort of thing. That's how it felt that day against the kind of established older kids who've been there in the league for a while in Prudhoe, and they deservedly won 3-0. And then we followed that up with a away trip to Blue Star. Obviously new to the league as well, but quite a much bigger club than what we are. That some of the players they brought in, you look at their experience and they're like there, and we knew that was going to be a tough task, and we played really well that night. Away at Scotswood, we had a really good game. We played, we were competitive. It was 1-1 until about, I think it was the 75th minute when they scored the winner. We got beat 2-1, but we came out of that. Like, yeah, we've lost, but we knew they were going to be there or thereabouts at the top, and it was almost like a bit of a free hit, really. So you kind of came away with that with a bit more confidence. And then we followed that up. I think we got beaten 2-0 at home by Horden. We played better, but it was kind of like that game kind of illustrated to me in the Northern League, the gap between the Northern League and the North Riding Premier League, in the sense that you've got to take your chances, and Horden took their chances that day. You don't get that many opportunities, and you've got to take them. And they won 2-0. Fair enough. And then we went into our first kind of Teesside derby of the season against Sinners at home. I wasn't at that game. I was away on holiday. I was gutted because I missed our first win in the Northern League. But an eventful game. I mean, Sinners had 2 players sent off. We won 3-1. Local derby. You can't say fairer than that. To get your first points. I think that kind of settled us a bit. It's like, we've got some. 4th game in, we got some points on the board there, and a big win against local rivals, which was really good to see. And then we went back up. the road to Bedlington Terriers away and lost 6-3. And you look at that scoreline, you think, oh, great, what's going on there? But we had plenty of chances first half, and we just didn't take them. They took their chances, and like I said before, you've got to take them. They were a really strong team. They played well, Terriers. But then half time, I think we changed the system. We went to 5 at the back, and we've stayed at 5 at the back since then. First few games were kind of 4-4-2, and we've gone to kind of like 5 at the back, and that made us a bit more solid going forward. Got 3 goals back in the second half. Again, we'd lost, but we knew Bedlington were going to be one of the stronger teams, and that's proven where they are in the league so far this season. So again, a little bit more confidence. And I think one of the big games for me, it's not the most glamorous of wins, but West End away, we won 1-0, and that was our first away points, and that was a big tick in the box, really. To get one at home, and now we've won away and kept a clean sheet.
Exactly. Yeah,
we played well that night. Whether we're pretty much in control of the game, knocking the ball around well. Second half winner, 1-0 away from home. You can't say further than that, really. And, that give us a confidence. Certainly as fans and supporters, actually, yeah, we can do something in this league. We won a couple, because at the start, after the first couple of games, you're thinking, oh God, where's our first win going to come from?
Yeah,
it was important to get those couple of wins in early doors, build up the confidence, and then kick on from there into the rest of the season. And it was kind of, I think as well, we started to become a bit more streetwise on the pitch, and a bit stronger, and knowing what was what the standard was like. Because talking to a couple of players, they said it's a lot. The energy levels and the fitness levels in this league are much higher than where we've been before, and it's just kind of getting used to that. Continuing through the game. So it was a really good start of the season. I mean, we're not going to win. You don't expect to go unbeaten at the start of the season when you first get promoted. You're going to get beaten a few times, but it's just getting those 6 points in. 6 points from 6 games. You can't say further than that, really, for it to kick things off.
No, good start. And a statement for yourself as well, James. I mean, I can tell from both you lads already the passion, the love for your clubs, which I absolutely love, and that's one of the reasons why I do this show and do the Facebook group, just to show the passion, the love for the Northern League and the North East football as well. And starting with yourself, James, how long has obviously the love for the club came around? Where did it all start for yourself?
I'm a relative newcomer, really, to non-league football in the North East. I've always loved sports, football, cycling, basketball, watching rugby or range of sports, really. But I've become a bit of an armchair fan, really, not getting to games or not getting to events to watch them. Plenty of ribbon from my mates because of that, armchair supporter, all the time, not going to games and stuff. And I just wanted to go and watch some local football and a local team. Live in Yarm. I never go and watch Borough. So that was kind of out of the question. And then I thought, well, I looked on Facebook, and Yarm and Eaglescliff came up and said, oh, we're playing some home games at Conyers School, which is only a short walk from us. So kind of the COVID season, like 2021, went to a couple of games, enjoyed it. And then, fixtures were cancelled and all things were happening. And then I started going sort of September 21. Went to my first game, we beat Borough Rangers 2-0 at home. Fantastic game. Just walked up there, watched the match, really enjoyed it. And I thought, I'm going to keep going to this. And then I've missed a handful of games since then, home and away. I just love it. It's like Saturday afternoons now, and Tuesday nights is going to watch Yarm and Eaglescliff. It's really just, it's like the difference where we've gone from like watching at school AstroTurf pitches to going, to going away at Thornaby, to going to like Blue Star, playing against Sinners, Billingham Town. It's just, it's that step up. It's like more of a match time. Steve mentioned it before, like the kind of more of a match day experience. Effectively, you go for a couple of beers before the match, have a chat on everybody, and then go and watch the game. It's a social thing as well. And it's just kind of grown from there. And I just, thoroughly enjoy it. I absolutely love going to watch them. It's just good fun, and a cracking bunch of people to go and watch the match with as well.
Oh, class. And what about yourself, Steve?
Well, I mean, my story sort of before Thornaby Football Club goes back a little bit longer. About 14 years now, actually, believe it or not. I mean, growing up, obviously, I was born in Middlesbrough, so brought up as a Borough fan. My uncle's taking me in the Holgate at Ayson Park when I was a kid, so I had a season ticket at Borough for a long time. Would go away games, those sorts of things. Around 2008, 2009 time, there was a bit of a change at the Borough. There was a lot more sort of a development of more of an active fan scene, which eventually became the Red Faction at Middlesbrough now, who are sort of quite renowned now for the, big displays and what have you that they do on a match day. I was involved early on at that, and I'd started banging heads really with people at Middlesbrough Football Club, safety officials, people like that at the time. And, the whole thing just left a really bitter taste in my mouth. And it was kind of, I recall one conversation with someone who is definitely no longer involved in Middlesbrough Football Club, but they were talking about like an active, passionate fans support, and saying that they didn't want that type of support at the borough. They wanted people to be quiet and sit down, and it was. I just kind of realised that I wasn't as valued. That sounds like a little bit egotistical, maybe, but I don't mean it in that way. It just that I realised that basically I was a consumer of a product. I was a customer. I wasn't part of something anymore. So I did the rounds, a couple of local clubs, the Northern League. Thornaby's actually always been the closest one to me because it's from where I grew up in Middlesbrough. It's literally on the other side of the A19 anyway. It's the shortest distance anyhow. And I ended up going to Thornaby. Now, those of you that haven't really been around long, I mean, if anyone watching who has been will know that Teesdale Park 14 years ago, it was an incredibly different place to what it's like now. Now I think that we have certainly one of the more unique, but certainly one of the the best looking grounds in the Northern League. I mean, yes, it's not one of the brand new kind of like you have at the likes of Bishop Auckland, which is very nice and what have you. But we've got a great facility now. When I first went down, there was no hard standing around the pitch. There was no perimeter fencing. The stand was shut because it was falling apart. Basically, it was like drive-in football. You could drive in through the gate, pay your £5 through or whatever it was through the car window, and park up at the top of the bank and just sit in the car and watch the football. There was no clubhouse. It sounds silly, but there was no clubhouse. It was literally like a stone concrete room, and there was a guy, Dave, who used to sit in there and sell cans of Carling out of a chest fridge. It was like a million miles away from what it looks like now. It's a total different place. But there was just something weird about it. I don't know if it's just like I have this like attraction to kind of unusual groups of people or whatever. But I remember I met a guy who's now a good close friend of mine, Tommy Grant, who at the time was the club chairman. And on a match day, he used to basically put the goals up and put everything out and run around doing everything. And I remember he always used to wear this like red boiler suit for some reason. And it was just this really odd group of people, I remember, in a good way. And it kept me coming back for years and years and years afterwards. And obviously, I've witnessed as a supporter over that kind of 13, 14-year period, like huge changes in the club. Like I said, the ground as a facility is developed. It is continuously developing. I was down there the other day doing a bit of hedge trimming, and the guys were telling me, this is what our next steps are going to be. These are our next plans for how we're going to continue to develop the ground. They're looking now at replacing more hospitality stuff so we can have offer hospitality for sponsors on a match day. There's going to be a new stand placed at one end of the ground. The guys at the moment are working on building a new function room that's going to be attached to the existing clubhouse. There's just so much going on, and it's like, it's truly an exciting place to be around, and it's a great bunch of people. There's a real core of us now, the kind of like the 40, 50 who are always there, home and away regardless. And, everyone's good mates now. We all know each other. It's always good crack on a match day. You look forward to spending the afternoon, with people that you get on with, and there's always a bit of weird crack and strange conversation going on watching the game and stuff like that. And it's it's something special that you get with non-league football. I know that's something that gets said an awful lot, and maybe it's a bit of a tired kind of phrase that people say, but you just don't get what we get in the Northern League, in professional levels of football. Certainly not in this country. Yeah. I think maybe you have some places where fan supporters have a hell of a lot more of a involvement. where, Germany's often been given as a good example where, you have the 50+1 rule where supporters really do have a say in their clubs all the way right up to the top of the Bundesliga, and I think that the nature of how that's organised really kind of maybe makes it a little bit different. But I mean, there's no way you can compare like the match day experience that we generally experience watching our sides with anyone in the Premier League or the Championship or the Football League in general. It's just a completely different, it's like black and white in some respects. It's just a total different experience from start to finish.
I think that's a really good point you make there, though. You just feel part of it. You feel part of your club. You feel valued, and you're not just a number. You're not just a number on the spreadsheet. You're an actual supporter person, who's going week in, week out. And you feel part of something. And it might not be the biggest group of fans in the world or supporters in the league or whatever, but you're part of it, and it's just class. It is brilliant.
It's exactly it. You're totally right. And I think about sort of things that I've done, I remember going down years ago and painting the toilets and painting the changing rooms and thinking like, well, is this what it's about, supporting a football team? And it is. It's weird things like that you kind of don't think you would ever have to do as a football, as a supporter of a football team. But that sense of belonging, dare I say, that sense of like family and identity of all of us together, and it's really good. It's what keeps me going back. My daughter's been coming with me. I mean, she's 13 in a couple of weeks, so she's kind of been really coming to watch Thornaby with me since she was born. Her birth was recorded in the club's minutes as a kind of congratulations to Steve and his wife, and things like that. And it's just like, so I, personally have a real kind of connection with that football club, and long may it continue, as long as we can keep paying the bills and, to put the team out on the field,
Awesome. Fantastic stories there, lads. Northampton Town, Jim was just mentioned there, being Thornaby away a few times, always quite a fiery game as well. Evening, thank you very much for watching. Keep getting your comments in as well, and keep hitting that subscribe button as much as you can. Also, and get on to the rest of 2023 and come to yourself, James and Yarm, and some great wins, some stand-up ones like the 1-0 against Blythe, 2-0 against Easton, the 2-0 against the Uni, who's flying at the moment, and the 4-3, obviously, a Blue Star as well. I mean, what's been your standout game so far up until obviously the end of 2023?
I'm going to be greedy here, and I'm going to choose 3. Because 3 different types of performance. Well, actually, I'll choose 4. I'll go through that Uni game first, because we beat them 2-0. We were awful. They went down to 8 men, and they had 3 players sent off. So it was by no means our best performance. It was one of them. Glad to get the 3 points at the end of the day. But the other 3 that kind of really stood out for me, I think, as an away performance, we beat Bolton 3-0 away. And we were quality that day. I think that's probably the best we've played, certainly the best I've seen us play away from home this season. Mm-hmm. Tom Atkinson, our striker, he got a first half hat trick. We just looked unstoppable that first half. And then, it was just quality across the pitch. We kept a clean sheet away from home. We looked in control throughout the game, played really well as a team. And that's one of the kind of all-round team performances. I think for me, that was like a real standout. Back in August, end of August, Blythe Town came to Bedford Terrace, and it's kind of a bit of they were flying high. They had a really, really good start of the season, and we really quality team. It was a bit of a free hit for us, really. We weren't expecting anything. And then sort of first half, Tom Atkinson again, wonder strike from the volley from the right edge of their 18-yard box, top corner. Keeper had no chance. I was 27 minutes in. You've got another best part of an hour. Just over an hour to kind of grab another one or hold on, and we held on. Proper, real, again, heroic team performance across the pitch. Just grafted so hard, put our bodies on the line, blocks, tackles, tracking back. The whole team just worked so hard, and it was like towards the end of the game, like you're thinking, hang on a minute, can we do this? Can we beat like high flying Blythe? And I remember looking at my Garmin watch, and my heart rate was going through the roof. I think afterwards, I reckon I'd done about an hour's worth of exercise just standing watching the game. I was that kind of caught up in it. It was absolutely brilliant. Fantastic performance all around. But I think for me, the game of the season and the result of the season is beating Blue Star 4-3 at home. That was just out of this world. We were 3-0 down with 70 minutes. Managed to get one back. Our midfield dynamo, Charlie Fixter, got one back on 72 minutes. And then Josh Larkin, attacking midfielder, got another one back in 88 minutes. I was like, hang on a minute, are we on to something here? And then Charlie again pops up a minute later and equalises, and you think, Matt, you're in dreamland, and you're thinking, come back from 3-0 down against one of the top teams in the league, absolutely buzzing. And then 3rd minute of stoppage time, free kick goes into the box, bit of confusion at the back, bounces off their keeper and goes in the back of the net. 4-3 up. It was just amazing. It's one of them moments. If you could just bottle that feeling up and sell it, you'd be a millionaire. It's what you go to football for. It was absolutely class. I've got to say, it's one of the first times I've been really glad that a football team from Newcastle's been beaten. But it was just one of those moments. It was just class, and it's like, I think that's probably one of the best performances, best wins, best moments watching the team and the kind of, three and a bit seasons I've been watching them. It was just absolutely brilliant.
Class, man. And Steve, yourself, obviously, with Thornaby as well. The rest of 2023, some great wins, like the double against FC Hartlepool, who came out, had started really well as well. The 3-1 against Yarm, the 3-1 against Chester Street Town, who were doing really well at that point as well, and some good draws in there. I mean, what's been your standout game up until 2024, would you say?
Well, I think, to be fair, I mean, like as we've touched on earlier, sort of our first kind of stretch of games, there wasn't really a great deal to talk about. We had an early win against Washington away 2-1, which again, I know they've not been a particularly solid side this season so far. They have struggled, but it was a win. We could take that. But like I say, I mean, for me, I mean, the games that I've really enjoyed and that we've looked very convincing and played well, like you've kind of mentioned. I mean, obviously to go away at Chester Street Town and turn them over 3-1. That's no mean feat, and great performance from our lads to go and do that. Again, Boxing Day at home when we played Yarm and Eaglescliffe, I think that going into that game, I mean, you don't know, Yarm and Eaglescliffe had a good season. Like I say, we're not a great run so far, and I think you probably came to us fancying, maybe a good win there. And it went our way, we took control and it worked well out for us, again, and really good, solid, important 3 points and a win. I don't know that we've had any games personally where I've kind of gone, wow, that was incredible, or where we've kind of had like a real kind of, where we've turned over a team, because we haven't had a particularly good run in the various cups. We struggled a bit with that in the Vars and the North Riding Cup, and obviously the League Cups were cancelled. But like I say, the past couple of games, sort of certainly since the beginning of November, we've just been played consistently good. I don't think we've had a bad performance. I mean, I suppose one that stands out as from a spectator's point of view has been a solid performance, although maybe not a particularly exciting game or so, was the 0-0 up at Horden when we went up there. I mean, Horden doing very well. They've got some superb players, real goal threat players, and it was 0-0. We could have taken it late on in the game. We had a couple of chances where, if the wind was blowing slightly the different direction, it would have gone in or what have you. But it was a good away performance for us, and I think it was certainly 2 points lost for them rather than us in that respect. You know what I mean? I think that we certainly went up there and basically we kind of cancelled them out. I don't know if it was just the tactics or whatever, but they just couldn't seem to get anything from it. So yeah, I mean, I can't complain. I mean, I'm very happy with how we've done. Like I mentioned earlier on, thank maybe with a bit of luck because of certain postponements and what have you, but it's 9 games on the trot now that we haven't lost for. That dates back to sort of the beginning of November, which is great form. Got some tough games to come though, and there's no denying that. We still have Blythe to play, we still have Blue Star to play twice. And we've got, and as the fixture builds up, especially with more postponements, we're looking at 2-3 games a week possibly. It's going to start really having to reach into the depth of the squad, and it's going to, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, that might lend advantage to us as well because everyone's got lots of games to catch up on, and I don't know everyone has a huge squad to choose from, just because of the finances and what have you at different clubs. But we'll see how it goes.
No, definitely. And back to yourself, James. I mean, it's crazy how we look at 2024 and we nearly getting towards the end of February. Yarm played 5 games so far. We only lost the one, obviously, at the Uni, good 6-2 win against Bolden, and 3 good draws as well. And like you say, when we're touching on now, sitting in that top 10 at the start of the season and them games so far, I mean, what would you look at them games so far in 2024? What would be your aims now as a fan, kind of saying, where would I want to end up the end of the season, would you say?
I think, as you point out there, we've had some, a solid start to 2024. Aside from the defeat at Uni, where that was probably the worst we've played all season. And to be fair, Newcastle Uni were fantastic that day and deserved winners. I said that really solid win against Bolden to kick things off. And then, we've drawn 3 games away from home, all 2-2. So plenty of goals, plenty of entertainment. Put ourselves in kind of difficult positions at times. I mean, the Sinners game, we on a Friday night down at Stokesley, our goalkeeper dislocated his shoulder in the warm-up. So our centre-half had to go and off one of the subs, Alex Dougal. He normally a centre-half. He's played pretty much every position across the pitch this season. He's played played up front, played in defence, played in midfield, played as a full-back. Proper Swiss Army knife for the club, he is. But he went in goal, and you're thinking 90 minutes with a stand-in keeper against Sinners, who, they had the top scorer in the league, I think, going into that game. We ended up 2-1 down the 87th minute, conceded direct from a corner, and then we won in the 94th minute, last minute strike again from Tom Atkinson. That kind of felt like a win, and it was just a real confidence boost. We didn't expect it. We were hoping for a point at best, really, when you lose your keeper, and then that kind of gave us a bit of a kickstart on. And then last game out against Billingham Town, we were kind of first half sloppy and poor. Went in 2-0 down, got it back to 2-2, and finished up with another away point. So, going into the rest of the season, you kind of want to build on that a bit more. But as Steve mentioned, the fixture congestion we've had the past 2 league games. Two of the past 3 games postponed. Brandon away, Washington away, Redcar Town at home on Saturday. In theory, you're looking at the weather, hoping the pitch is going to dry out in time. So for the rest of the season, it's kind of like managing those postponed games and that kind of fixture backlog. We're fortunate in a sense. I think we've played the most games out of the league, of everybody in the league this season. I think we're around about 30 games we've played compared to some of the teams that are on low 20s. So we haven't got as much fixture congestion, but that can quickly back up. And I think going up for the rest of the season, it's just a case of keeping going, consolidating that top 10 position and trying to push on a bit and seeing if we can get to up to into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I know Stevie's thinking, you played 5 games, it's more than us, because like you say, we only played 3 games in 2024. It's absolutely crazy, man, when you think about it. But unbeaten, as you say, beating Washington 5-0, Chester Town, as we mentioned, 3-1, a good 0-0 draw at Horden as well. And like you say, you're still only playing on 26 games and a lot more games to play. Look at that top 10 as well. I mean, what's your thoughts and aims now for the rest of the season, would you say, Steve?
I think it's just to continue picking up points, staying in good form. Hopefully, we can continue that. I think looking at the table, and I had a look before we came on air earlier, and it's actually quite tight, sort of from 10th place right up to sort of maybe even 4th. I think there's only really Blythe and Blue Star who've got a bit of a solid kind of chunk of points ahead of the next team, I think that if we can keep our good form up, if we can pick up, points in the games where maybe we're not expecting to, who knows? I think we may have left it too long for the playoffs, but you don't know. Like I said, when you start getting those fixtures piling up and you've got teams playing 2-3 games a week, you get tired legs, you get lads who are unavailable to play for the team, results go different ways. It'd be nice. I certainly wouldn't complain if we could get into the playoff before the end of the season. But, I think given everything that's gone on, I think as long as we can finish as high as possible this season, and then we can keep going again next year, and hopefully try and make a push to get back into the first division.
It's probably really good if you could as well. And before we go on to kind of the final questions for the lads about the clubs as well, I mean, just before we get on to helping the clubs, please get across to, like you say, the social medias for both the clubs, Twitter, Facebook, follow, subscribe, any channels that I've got as well. Help both clubs as much as you can. It all supports the clubs as well. But starting back with yourself, Steve, like I say, the club itself, attendance around 100 to 200 this season for Thornaby. We'd like to say it would be nice to hitting them 200 plus every game. But anyone that's watching, anyone that's around the Thornaby area, why should they give the club a go?
Well, like I've already said, I mean, it's an experience you're not going to get at your professional football. It's something very different. Everything about it's different. It's a chance to kind of get involved in something that you can belong to, that you can see making a difference. At our level, attendances are everything. If you can guarantee a solid average attendance, that money through that gate is going to make a massive difference to your playing budget, and certainly to even just paying the bills. There's so much expense to football clubs that people perhaps don't even think about. It's like paying for maintenance on the pitch, getting the pitch marked out, having to pay the electric bill, having to pay for the bar, stock. And
exactly. Yeah.
It adds up, I think in terms of the attendances, I mean, we've had in recent years, I mean, the season when we were promoted up into the first division, when we took it down to the last day of the season against Billingham Town. Sadly, that game in hand that they had just took them over, and they won the league by a point against us. That last game, we had nearly 500 at home against Esh Winning, and no disrespect to Esh Winning, but that wasn't they didn't bring a large proportion of that crowd. You know what I mean? It's just it was people coming to watch Thornaby. I mean, I look at the population of the town, and obviously, you might not be aware as such in the area, but Thornaby has a sort of small town attached to it in the form of Ingleby Barwick. And that combined population across that area is nearly 50,000 people, That's a bigger population than Bishop Auckland. It's actually bigger than even somewhere like Spennymoor. So potentially, it's a huge market to tap into. I think that's everyone has a part to play, and the club has to market itself as well as it can to let people know. It's all about making those community links to get people involved. And these are all little things that are happening behind the scenes, I know, at Thornaby. They're really developing, good business links now. You may or may not be aware, but we've had a women's first team now for quite a few seasons, and they're doing very well. We've got quite an extensive group of girls junior teams now, sort of from under 18s right down to, I'm going to say maybe under 7s or even under 6s. So the club's actually focusing on developing that kind of community sense, but taking a focus on supporting women's football as well, which is quite different, I think. Of course, our senior men's team's important and it'll always be kind of probably the forefront of the club. But there's so much going on behind the scenes in terms of us promoting the women's football and junior football for girls and what have you. So hopefully, these things will start to continue and people will come down and take interest, I think that the one downside, I suppose, that I would say is I think where our club is located is perhaps possibly a negative. I think if we were a little bit more central to the town centre, I think we'd have no problems. You know what I mean? I think we would attract a lot more passing by local people who live close by. But because we're kind of a little bit out of the way, it's off the beaten track, literally. It's certainly a well-beaten track with some of the potholes that I've had to drive through to get in there. And I think sometimes maybe people think, well, do I really want to walk down through these dark woods to get there and stuff? But, it is what it is. There's nothing we can really do about that. We're lucky enough that we have such a good facility that we're not struggling, in terms of having like a somewhere to play, as has happened in the past with certain clubs where they've kind of suddenly found themselves homeless and had to, wing it short notice. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I would just say to people, if you want to come down, yes, the football's not going to be like the World Cup standard or the Premier League standard, but it balances itself out because you've got teams who are on similar levels. You can't. I don't go down and watch it and think, oh, this is a terrible quality standard of football, because it isn't. I think if people get their heads around the fact that what we've got going on at our clubs is good competitive football at a good standard, and that we can offer a good match day experience. I think a lot of people still have it in their head that non-league football is literally like a park field with some fellas, your Sunday league kind of setup where, there's like jumpers for goalposts and stuff like that. I think that people will be very surprised at the sort of professional approach at a lot of clubs in the Northern League, and I think that if people give things a chance, maybe it's for them. It happened to me. It happened to most of us. We all started somewhere by going down that first time, and we'll see what it's like, and it just happens. You get hooked on it.
Fantastic, man! It is. And James, yourself, obviously with the club, I mean, attendance is about between 90 to 150, a couple of 200, depending on obviously the games that you're playing against as well. But for the first season, normally really good. And same for yourself. Why should people come down and check out the club as well?
I think one of the big things for us, we're a relatively young club, as I mentioned before. We only started in 2017, so we're kind of like creating our kind of history, as it were, going forward. We're a young, ambitious club. You say we're getting some really good attendances there, and I think bear in mind that we're ground sharing at Billingham Town. Thanks to them for being our landlords, because it's helped us get into the Northern League. But we're still getting 100, 150 fans per game, and it's still it's not like it's on your doorstep effectively if you're in Yarm and Eaglescliff. It's a good 15, 20-minute drive. Can be half an hour, 40 minutes, depending on what Yarm High Street's like getting through. But it's kind of we're starting to grow that kind of core support, and and people are coming along. We're seeing more people coming again and again and giving it a try. And Steve mentioned that it's about people giving it a chance. That's what I did when I first went along watching the North Riding Premier League, and I got hooked. And I think more people, if people are open to it and give it a chance, they'll enjoy it. We're really looking to establish, non-league football in Yarm and Eaglescliff. We're working. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with the committee, and trying to, get us a ground within Yarm and Eaglescliff so we can kind of have that hub and grow from there. We've identified a location near Allen's West train station and part of the Eaglescliff secondary school. So there's discussions ongoing with the school about that. We're talking to the local council about planning, etc. And I think one of the frustrating elements is there's a hell of a lot of hoops to go through and a lot of hurdles to get past. When you're trying to do something for the community, we're really trying to push, to get something set up for the community. It's not just about finding a home for the first team and the reserves. It's about finding a home for like junior teams and see if we can open up and try and get like a kind of a really good setup there. We've got strong links with like the Leaving Juniors, DF coaching, etc., which are local to us. It's fantastic when you see a lot of the Leaving Ultras, as they call themselves, turn up with their drums and their flags and their chanting throughout the game, and it's absolutely brilliant to see this group of 11, 12, 13-year-old kids really getting involved and enjoying it and having that kind of that bond with a club. And that's what you want to do, and you want to grow that. But it's easier for us to do that when we have our own ground in Yarm, and we're confident that that'll come in the next 18 to 24 months or so. As I said, there's a hell of a lot of work going on behind the scenes. I think as well, we've got a strong setup. We've got a really good reserve team. They're flying high at the top of the North Riding League Division 1. Top of the table clash this Saturday against Ormsby at Conyers. They're doing really, really well. Really good bunch of lads playing. Some of the first teamers are, getting some minutes there in the reserve team, and some really good young players coming through. And we're trying to set that kind of pathway up going through. And we play some really good football. I mean, I think people think that non-league is going to be just hoofing the ball up, and it's not. When we get the chance, teams will play football, and they're close, competitive games. It's full on 100% commitment. There's no VAR. There's no, there's no people rolling around on the floor. Lads get stuck in, but they play some fantastic football, and it's just really enjoyable. Plenty of entertainment. Guaranteed goals. I mean, you just have to look through our games. We've had that 4-3 against Blue Star, 4 all away at Horden. We lost 5-4 against Mask in the North Riding Cup, which was an absolute thriller. You know, there's plenty of entertainment and it's cheap. You know, £5 to get in, or I think I'm paying just over £70 a season for my season ticket, and it's like fantastic value. You know, I think as well, one of the key things as well, I'm going to make a plug for these. The half-time pies at Yarm are amazing. Definitely recommend anybody when they come to Bedford Terrace to get yourself a steak and pie half-time. They're absolutely gorgeous. Most of all, for me, the biggest thing is the people that are there. You know, I started, as I mentioned before, I started just rocked up on myself, and then get talking to people, and you become friends, and you kind of you see them at the match, and you have a drink before the game. I mean, I love going to away games because you get the bar before and have a pint, have a crack on. You know, it's just brilliant. The committee, the players, everybody, the supporters around the club are fantastic. I mean, I kind of chauffeur drive to the Yarm OAPs every game, like away games. Like, you know, Morris is like 81 and Jim's like 78, and just hearing them chat in the car about when they used to go and watch Brian Clough play at Borough, and just, you know, just different people you're meeting all the time. It's fantastic. You know, and I think I encourage anybody really, whatever league you're close to, non-league you're close to, give it a go. Even if you've got a season ticket at Borough, Sunderland, Newcastle, wherever, and they're away, or you know, there's not a game on, go down to your local non-league team. You know, that £5 you'll spend on the gate, you know, that blind card you'll buy, the 50-50 draw, or pies, the beer, whatever, all helps keep these teams going, and, you know, just give it a go.
No, 100%. Hats off to you both. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure having you both on and hearing the stories, and like you say, pushing both clubs as well. We wish you both the very best of luck for the rest of the season as well, lads.
Okay, cheers. Thanks for having us on.
No, thanks very much, Randy. It's been a pleasure. Excellent.
And back again next week, really busy. Just get myself a shift slide for Tuesday, so the wife thought we'd spend the night together, but no, I'm going to South Shields versus Scunthorpe on Tuesday night. Sorry, wife. And then on the Wednesday night, we have the North East Non-League Show, episode 67. We're previewing the big game, our charity game of the year for Gary Pearson, and a few former teammates, players, manager of the Northern Leagues coming on. Mark, Ian and Craig should be some great stories building up that game in a couple of weeks' time. And Thursday, we've got a great manager coach of the North East Non-League scene, Andy College, coming on to chat about his time in the game so far. But again, everyone that's been watching, and for both fans, and like you said, James and Steve, absolutely a pleasure having you on, and wish you very best of luck for the rest of the season as well.
Cheers. Thank you.